Far removed from India's bustling metropolises lies a region defined by its isolation. This is Bastar. For centuries, its vast river systems and endless green canopies acted as a natural fortress, keeping the rapid expansion of the modern world at bay. That isolation preserved a landscape of staggering scale. The Indravati River cuts through the dense forest, plunging over wide, tiered cascades to form some of the most powerful waterfalls in South Asia. Long before the modern Indian Republic, this territory was governed by the Kakatiya dynasty as the Bastar princely state. Because the royal administration largely left the deep forests untouched, the region survived as an anthropological time capsule. It remains home to some of the oldest indigenous communities on the subcontinent, including the Gond, Murya, and Halba tribes. Their daily lives and social structures, often identifiable by their distinct floral headgear and white traditional attire, have operated in harmony with the forest for generations. The dense geography protected both the ecosystem and the culture. But as the 20th century advanced, the very isolation that kept Bastar pristine left it entirely disconnected from the systems of a developing nation. The cultural wealth here is immense. Artisans use a lost wax casting technique called dokra to craft intricate golden-hued deities and wildlife entirely by hand, a method passed down through centuries. This deep-rooted heritage peaks during Bastar Dussehra. For 75 days, distinct tribes converge to pull a massive ceremonial chariot, uniting the region's diverse communities under a single cultural identity. Yet outside of these cultural gatherings, the region operated in a void. By the late 20th century, thousands of remote villages in Bastar lacked access to a single hospital, a paved road, or a reliable school. Looking at a map of central India from that era, the disparity is obvious. While surrounding states saw a steady expansion of highways and power grids, Bastar registers as a stark plunge in structural density. If you overlay the areas that eventually erupted into armed conflict, the borders align almost perfectly with this infrastructure vacuum. The state's absence created a sprawling, ungoverned space. Without civil administration or economic opportunity, the region became fertile ground for militant factions looking to establish a stronghold. In the late 1960s and 70s, an armed leftist insurgency known as Naxalism gained traction. The militants capitalized on genuine local grievances regarding indigenous land rights and the commercial extraction of forest resources. Bastar's geography offered a perfect tactical shield. The thick forest canopy and lack of formal mapping allowed armed cadres to move undetected, navigating remote, tree-lined dirt roads entirely outside the view of the government. The local tribal populations were caught directly in the middle. Villages found themselves pressured by insurgents demanding supplies and recruits, while simultaneously facing heavy suspicion from state authorities. Simple survival became an arduous task. Routine activities like transporting harvested forest goods required villagers to carry heavy loads by hand, wading waist-deep across rivers just to bypass conflict zones and reach functional markets. To reclaim the territory, the Indian government deployed central paramilitary forces. Thousands of CRPF personnel were stationed across Bastar, turning the quiet forest into a theater of heavily armed patrols and fortified camps. The deployment of troops managed to secure major transit routes and contain the violence. However, military presence alone could only suppress the symptoms of the insurgency. Lasting stability required addressing the severe lack of opportunity that started it all. Over the last decade, the strategy shifted toward aggressive infrastructure development. Engineering corps moved in under heavy security, paving over the dirt tracks to connect deep forest villages to the national highway grid. Roads brought supply chains, allowing the state to construct functional concrete schools, staff modern primary health centers, and install reliable clean water systems in areas that had never seen government services. With physical access established, the focus turned to the next generation. Targeted skill development programs, local sports academies, and dedicated seats in higher education are giving tribal youth a direct pipeline into the modern workforce. At the village level, women are organizing into self-help groups to process and sell non-timber forest produce and traditional handicrafts at scale, creating a massive, decentralized microeconomy. This chart shows the direct result of that economic integration. As the revenue generated by female-led microbusinesses steadily climbs over the past 10 years, the number of violent extremist incidents in those exact same districts sharply declines. Financial independence and consistent state support are removing the oxygen from the insurgency. By giving communities a tangible stake in their own development, the region is actively dismantling the foundation of the conflict. Today, stability is paving the way for an eco-tourism boom. Visitors are traveling deep into previously restricted zones to see the towering drops of the Tirithgard Falls and explore the vast, untouched natural reserves. Modern supply chains now link directly to Bostar's rural hubs. Tamarind, mahua, and wild honey are processed locally and shipped nationwide, allowing indigenous communities to profit from ancient trades without leaving their ancestral lands. Alongside physical roads, cellular towers and digital data networks are lighting up the forest canopy. Villages that lacked basic electricity 20 years ago are now executing digital payments and accessing online education. Outside observers often still view this region through the lens of 20th century headlines, assuming it remains an active, isolated war zone. The reality on the ground has moved far past that narrative. Bastar is stepping out of the shadow of insurgency. Through immense structural effort and deep cultural endurance, it is proving that even the most fractured regions can bridge the gap between their ancient heritage and a prosperous modern future.